Okay, let's see. I want to go see a movie. What am I going to go see? Oh, Spider-Man No Way Home is still out. Definitely think I should probably watch that again. I mean, fifth time's the charm, right? So, yeah. But then people might start to question or look at me even weirder. Eh. Let's see what else we've got. I think I will stick with the superhero genre, though. I mean, I could see the Batman. Oh, Morbius. Let's see. The trailers have been good. Definitely looks interesting. I kind of like the character on the animated show back in the '90s. That was interesting. And I mean, with the Spider-Man trilogy and then Venom, all being great films. I don't care what anybody says about those Venom films. I absolutely love them. I mean, Sony's on a roll. Okay, Morbius, it is. All right, I'm looking forward to this movie. It's gonna be great. Welcome to Unedited Reviews, Morbius. Now, what did I think of this movie? Well, I love this film. It's one of the best movies Sony's ever put out. It's so much better than No Way Home, and it's so much better than Venom. This thing is just spectacular in every single way. I'm sorry. I had to. I know that was very bad and it was obvious, but I had to have some fun with it. But first, what's this movie about? Very simply, it's about a doctor named Michael Morbius, has a rare disease, trying to cure that disease, ends up using vampire bats to cure himself, but in doing so, turns himself into a living vampire, and then has to go out and fight another creature of the dark and prove that he is an anti-hero because he doesn't want to be a vampire. All the while being hunted by the police and this other dark force that wants to destroy him. Now, that's it in a nutshell. And yes, you've heard something like that a million times before. And while most critics seem to be giving Morbius the shaft and saying this movie is terrible, this is the worst thing ever, this movie's complete garbage, I can't totally disagree with them, but I think they're being a little too severe with it. If you had expectations up here, like from the trailers or the clips, kind of like I did, you definitely got knocked down below where you can see on the camera as far as expectations went. At least I did. Which was good because I was able to go into this film with very little expectation and actually enjoy myself to the point where I was raised from down here to up here. Again, not great, but I enjoyed it and I had fun. It's a movie that I can watch again, but it's not going to be one that I'm going to just randomly throw on or watch on loop. But the best way I can describe this movie, like I said, is it's watchable for the most part. But it's a combination of Venom and Batman, but not in a good sense of the words or in a good sense of these characters. Because you got the dark tones of Venom, you've got the fact that most of this movie takes place at night, especially when the fights happen. An alien type force, we'll say, with the vampire blood and disease, versus another one of the exact same type of character, maybe a tougher caliber than our hero. And then I'm just going to say, you'll notice when you watch this movie why I'm thinking Batman, but of course, vampire bats, vampires, Batman, bats, but there's more to it than just that. But let's talk about the performances. Let's start with Jared Leto. I think he's getting too much crap for this movie. I mean, everybody's saying, oh, he was in the worst DC movie with Suicide Squad, now he's in the worst Marvel movie with Morbius. I think Jared Leto did a fine job. I don't think it was his fault that this movie was bad. I actually wouldn't mind seeing this character more. I wouldn't mind seeing him in another film, like maybe with Venom, or Heck, I'd even go to a second movie if they could make it better, which I'll talk about later, because I thought Jared Leto was fine. I mean, he didn't really give much character to Morbius, I felt, but at the same point, I don't really know what I was expecting. I felt like he gave enough sympathy to the character through just the way he acted with this illness. You got the idea of him being kind of cocky because he doesn't accept the Nobel Prize in the beginning. You see where he grew up. You see what he's been living with. You see that he's kind of, well, I'll say he's kind of a Tony Stark in his cockiness, just knowing how good he is, because he does things off the book. He said he doesn't want others to get involved because he wants them to have deniability. He has a rich friend to bring him all the money that he needs. And then he slowly grows into this dark creature of the night. Kind of takes responsibility for what he creates, what he does. And if you haven't noticed, I'm struggling because I'm realizing that he doesn't really have a hero's journey. There's really no point in this film where it's, okay, I'm going to be who I have to be. I'm going to do what I have to do. It's there, and there's moments of it. But the fact that it took me a while to see that or to think about that, even as I'm doing this review, means that it's not evident. It's not prominent like it is in other movies, like with Spider-Man. But that being said, like I said, Jared Leto's not bad. I would not mind seeing him playing Morbius again in some other film, in another Sonyverse film. Then you got Matt Smith. And I like Matt Smith. I really thought he did a great job in this film. He's a very interesting character, and he definitely has more of a turn, more of a change in his personality and his character through this film. He starts off just like Michael, very timid, has this disease, wants to find a cure. He obviously isn't smart enough to. That's why he's friends with Michael. But then you see him grow and you see him change. And some people say it's abrupt, this change. But I actually understand it and I get it and it works. Because if you think about it, he kind of had this side to him all along. It's like what Spider-Man would say in the comics. I'm not exactly sure where, but it was always this idea of, Peter Parker was the timid science nerd, got picked on a lot, had no friends really. But when he put the suit on, he became strong and confident. That's kind of what I would say it is here, except it's for the villain. That when the villain gains these powers, he becomes confident enough to do whatever he wants to do things that he's always wanted to do. So, in that sense, I think Matt Smith's character has more of a progression than Jared Leto does. Let's jump to Tyrese. Yeah, totally pointless. If they wanted to keep this type of character, they could have gone with a lesser known actor. They could have gone with a no name, maybe given somebody else a chance to be in the film, maybe break into the movie industry. Because this isn't doing Tyrese any favors. He's just boring and unlikable, which he's supposed to be unlikable. But his partner is actually funny. His partner is the comedy relief. And I almost feel like, what would this movie have been like if it was just that guy? Just the comedy relief, and he's the cop trying to track down what's going on. We've seen it before. But I feel like maybe if you added that bumbling detective into this story, that might have made it a little bit more enjoyable. But instead, you got the bumbling, kind of clueless idiot at times, though he's not completely dumbfounded or stupid. And then you got his partner, the hard ass, the everything by the book type character. And we've seen this pairing before, but I feel like if you just had that one, you could have made the movie better maybe just by doing that. Then you've got Morbius's love interest of the film. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the actress's name. But she's not bad at it either. She plays the role well. She feels what that role needs to be. Clearly she's smart, and she does have some sass to her. Like, I love this one moment on the ship. There's these henchmen or these goons that come in, and this isn't a clip, so you can see it. And they just start to insult her. And they say, "Nurse, we've got this," or something like that. And she's like, "Actually, I'm a doctor." So I like that. The fact that she has sass and she's got strength. And you can tell that she's clearly concerned about Michael and about things going on. And she doesn't really have much growth either during this film. I'm having trouble really figuring out how she grew or how she changed for the movie. Because she's just like Michael. She accepted what he was, and she was his confidant, and certain things that happen set up another movie. I mean, there's really not much to describe when it comes to her character besides the smart woman scientist that nobody takes seriously but loves the main character. And unfortunately, it's not necessarily a good thing for her. The last character I do want to mention is the doctor that has been helping Michael and Matt Smith's character for their entire lives. He's charming and he's lovable. You really get a sense and you really understand that he cares about these boys. He cares about all his patients. And if there's that, shall we say, Aunt May character in this movie, it's definitely him. And I thought he was played very well. The character did what he needed to do, went through some changes as things were happening, but he definitely was a nice addition to the film. And I think it would have been a lesser film without him in it, or if he had been played in a different way. Now that all comes to the story itself. And that is where the problem is. I don't think it has anything to do with the performances. I think they're doing the best they can with the script they've been given. Because the script is not solid. I mean, there's good things to it. There's definitely a lot of potential there. And even the fact people have compared it to cheesy 90s superhero movies that we got. And I'm like, why is that a bad thing? I like those movies. I grew up with those movies. And that wasn't the problem I had with this movie. I just feel like they could have done so much more with it. This is one time I do complain that a lot of it happened in the dark or at night and it was hard to see things. Because I wanted to see more of what was going on. And the story, it was just too blah for me. I needed something else. I mean, you've got years, decades of history with this character. You've got him in the comics. You've got him in animation. He's had his own series at times. You have so much you can do with this character, and you just give us a bland story. Part of the problem with that also was the editing. Now, I'm not one of these guys that notices all the editing problems that come up. I might be like, something doesn't quite feel right, but I'll never really contribute it to editing. This movie, though, definitely had editing problems. Because there were 2 or 3 moments where I'm watching the film, and let's say it goes from a fight scene, and right before they attack, it cuts and there's people eating dinner. And I'm like, well, wait. What did I miss? Did I fall asleep and not realize it? Or how do we get from this point to this point? How do we get from point A to point B? And when I notice editing problems, then clearly there's editing problems, because I don't usually pick up on that stuff as much as professional critics do. As for the visuals, they were fine. They definitely could have been better. I feel like they kind of did them better with that original Daredevil, because the echolocation, the sonar that Daredevil has, I liked how they showed that in the movie. Here, I mean, it was interesting, and it's different because he can see, but it just didn't work as well for me. I mean, it was still interesting when he is using it and his ears change a little bit. That's cool. His flying moments and how that stuff works, it's interesting. But again, it's kind of like, it's lackluster. Which is actually a good word to describe this movie in general. It's lackluster. And they could have done so much more with this. I mean, the special effects, like I said, you could have taken them a whole lot further. They could have looked a lot cooler. And the costuming. This was something when I thought about it that did actually bug me. Because, sure, you have normal dress and normal clothes, and that's all costuming, and that's important. But when you're doing a superhero movie, I look at the costume too. Morbius really doesn't have a costume. I mean, I don't really know how you could have made him have a costume. But the fact of the matter is, something that is supposed to have a costume, or even if it's a supervillain, supervillains have outfits that distinguish them. Even if you'd made some joke like, I don't want to wear purple, or I'm not going to wear that cape, that's dumb, or, maybe he has a shirt over himself, and as the fight goes, it gets around his neck and turns into a cape, because it gets shredded. That could be cool. But there was none of that. As far as the vampire look as well, we never really got to see it. I felt like I never got a clear shot of it throughout the whole movie. There might have been like a few moments where I could see it, but it still felt like this is imperfect. I want a better shot of it. And I don't know if that was just what they wanted it to look like, if they were shooting in the dark, trying to hide it. Put your theories out there with regards to this film, or how much studio intervention there was. I don't care. I'm looking at what's on the screen. But then we get to the end. And I'm not going to spoil the end of this film, but there's two things that happen that I was just like, what? I mean, they took me out of the movie for a moment. There's a moment during the final scene, the final battle, where all of a sudden Morbius gets this new ability. And you're like, where did that come from? And I'm sorry, but it's not that interesting of one either. And it kind of makes sense, but it's just dumb. It has no explanation. There's no real reason or understanding behind it, I'll say. They could have done so much better than what they did. Which leads to the fact that the ending, completely lackluster. It was boring. It was not exhilarating. It was not exciting. And that's what I'm expecting when I go see a superhero or anti-hero type film. And I did not get that with this movie. It just kind of ends. It gives a hint of the future, but then it just ends. And then you've got the post-credit scenes. The one, I'll give them the one. Doesn't make sense, no, but at least it explains how certain things can happen or why certain characters are where they are. But that final one, no. It's better if that one never happened. Sony just, they were doing so well. That's all I'm going to say. They were doing great. They had Spider-Man No Way Home. They had Far From Home. They had Venom. They had Venom Let There Be Carnage. They had No Way Home. Did I say Far Away? Far From Home? Whatever. They had all these really good movies, and they were on a roll. But clearly, they were thinking of something else that they didn't learn about. And this final post-credit scene shows us that. So that one should just not have happened. So, when it comes to Morbius, do I recommend this movie? If you're a die-hard Spider-Man fan like I am, if you know the characters, if you love this universe, then yeah, you're probably already going to go see it if you haven't seen it already. And there'll be things about it you can appreciate. I'm just going to say, temper your expectations. Don't go in expecting like a 10, because then you're going to be severely disappointed. I'd say go and expect a 2. And if you go in expecting a 2, you might get a 4 or 5 from it. So, as far as rankings, as far as a review score, what would I say? I'd say this movie is a civilian. It's right in the middle. There's enough good stuff about it that I say it's watchable. But there's not enough that I can push and say, no, you have to go see this movie. It's a film that you can probably wait to see when it gets released on Blu-ray and DVD, or when it's on streaming, wherever that may be. That being said, I do like the theater, the movie-going experience, so I like to see movies in the theater, so I would recommend going, but that's just me. But what do you think? Do you have no intention of seeing Morbius after you've heard reviews? Did you see Morbius? Was it good at all? Are you one of those people that thinks, no, this movie was complete garbage? There was nothing redeemable about it in any way. And I'm nuts for even thinking there was something half decent about it. Whatever you think, let me know down in the comments and be civil about it. Because after all, this is a fandom community. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And until our next review or our next gathering, our next class, remember, enjoy what you love, read what you love, and let's all work for a better fandom. I'll see you next time.